All right. It says we are live, so I guess we're live. Welcome back, everybody. You know it's Tuesday evening. You know what time that's for. It is time for Good Questions, Bad Answers.
Woo!
I'm your host, Joshua Jack, my co-host.
Tim Izzo.
And we're here to have a great discussion. Tonight we're going to be talking about how do I become a subject matter expert? And for those of you that are watching, if you wouldn't mind saying hello, tell me where you're watching from. And I just want to say thank you for spending your time with us this evening. For those that are watching this on podcast or watching this on YouTube and listening to us on podcast in the future, we appreciate you spending your time with us. And if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to send us a comment or a question or a topic to goodquestionsbadanswers@gmail.com and join us on our Facebook page where you can be a part of the show next week. So we already got a thumbs up from Jared.
Woo!
And Justin says hello, fellas.
Hey,
well, hello
Jared.
to you.
Hey, Justin.
Justin, hope you're doing well. Glad to have you all here this week. And Chris is the P. And Jared is from the living room in Arizona. So, but tonight's gonna be a good night. Last week we covered Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon, which was great.
Yep.
Patrick says hello from Oklahoma. Thanks for joining us, Patrick. And here again, we're going to talk tonight about whatever. The topic is how do I become a subject matter expert? But we can talk about whatever, because that's the whole point of this show. This whole show is about good conversation, and so we're here to. Well, we're really here to entertain ourselves, but we really hope we entertain you two at the same time. But anyway, so before we get started, Tim, how's your week going, man? Tell me about it. What's going on?
It's been pretty good. It wasn't too eventful. I had an interview today with I have a company for my Amazon company that provides investments.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I signed up with them is because they do it completely different from everybody else. There's no monthly payments and no interest.
Mm-hmm.
It's genuinely people who just want to be a part of your business, help you grow, and become a smaller piece of it by the time that you've grown. And it's an amazing thing. And in some episode, I'll have to talk about it and explain it in detail. I'm sure there'll be some people who are kind of curious about it. I think it's gonna take over. I really do, just because there's a lot of issues with cash flow and capital when it comes to growing your business, especially on Amazon. And they've created a really crazy win-win scenario where it's the least hurt for sellers, whereas if you take out a loan or other things, you're always paying something back every month, and sometimes business doesn't go well. So It's amazing. But I had an interview today with somebody, and since I've been with this investment company for over a year now, they wanted to see how it went, how I'm doing, how I feel about the company themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only supposed to be a half-hour interview, but I took over an hour. I had a lot to say. I'm amazed by this company, so I'm excited to talk about that.
So if it wasn't for this company that you've been working with, where would your business be today outside of it?
I honestly, it's kind of scary to think of that question, and the interview lady asked me that too. I don't know if I would still be in the business or not.
Oh, really?
Just because there's a lot of ups and downs that go with it, and and then you have your personal life too, and there's ups and downs with that, which then affect you trying to go into and do your business. And having them, they called me every week and just talked about everything, whether it was strategies, it was personal life things, it was motivational type of things. And so they consistently were having my back in whatever I needed to keep pushing myself forward. And having the capital was huge too, because there's times when I bought a product and it didn't necessarily sell the way I wanted it to sell, but I wasn't stuck with just that one product sitting in Amazon doing nothing. I had enough money to go buy a different product that was giving me profits in the meantime. And that was huge.
Well, it's interesting because we've talked about this before. We've actually talked about this plenty of times in the past. And it's one of those things, and we say it with a grin. It almost sounds like it's too good to be true, but it actually is true. It's like there's actually people out there that really want to see your success. And obviously, I mean, obviously they have skin in the game too, because
Yeah.
they're giving you money and they want you to be successful. So they're coaching you, they're showing you the ins and outs and trying to guide you, because the better you do, the better they do. So it's a win-win. And, sadly, in the online world and in society today, it seems like we meet a lot of people that are just trying to make a quick buck. And, in the
Yep.
Marine Corps, we have this thing called, Semper Fidelis, right? Which really means always faithful, right? Semper Fi,
Yep.
is short. But a lot of times we see Semper I, always me, in society today. Like,
That's so
and,
true.
and it's like, Semper I, screw the other guy. That's that's the mentality that you see in some of these online business deals. So it's really kind of encouraging to hear your story, and yeah, and, at some point we'll have to do a show on that, because I think that would help
and
a lot of people getting involved.
and I totally agree with what you're saying too. And it's sad that like the Simper I people speak
Yeah.
somehow way louder than the people who are out to support you. And so we hear more about them and we think that there's more of them out there. And it's interesting. I actually read a comment from a marketer that I follow, and he was saying that, he's trying to talk about all the bad news that's out there, and he's trying to tell people, there's just as much good news out there, but there's
Right.
one unfortunate thing: bad news, like titles and articles and stuff, they convert 4 times higher than good articles. Good articles are only about a 1x kind of conversion, so it's just shows you that people are going to listen more to what's going on out there that's negative, despite the fact that the world is a glass half full, half empty. It's equally both. It's just you have to be looking for it, and people
Well,
would rather look for the negatives.
well, and then also people seem to have a little bit more energy to be negative. Like,
Yes.
like if you get screwed, right? Like if you bought a product, you'd be more likely to hop on and leave a review, being like, "Rah, click, 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 click," screw this
So
company,
true.
But very rarely, because the silent majority, right? It's the silent majority, which is conservative. Like, okay, well, it worked like it was supposed to. I'm not I'm not
Yep.
going to give you kudos for it working like it's supposed to. But heaven forbid you do something that it doesn't work like it's supposed to, and then you draw the ire of everybody. Chris Rowling says this: in a negotiation seminar, the phrase was fair rather than win-win. I think the problem is, Chris, it's not even fair. It's win-lose. In some of these cases, like, there's sharks out there that they want to rip you off, because they don't even care about fair or win-win. They just want win, semper I, and unfortunately, that kind of mentality kind of ruins. Well, I mean, and it kind of goes back to that whole aspect of people seeing capitalism as wrong, or capitalism as a bad thing, or these business owners are just out to rip people off, and that's not the case. Most of the business owners I know, they love helping people. That's why they got into business. That's why they got into entrepreneurship, was to help streamline processes and help answer questions and help, but that doesn't sell, right? The movie isn't going to sound great if everybody's hunky-dory, right? There has to be a problem. So, what's the quickest way to make an interesting drama? Well, you have a bad guy. And who's the bad guy? So someone that has money, or someone that has whatever. So I think, it's interesting that the things that we kind of conjure in our mind over time, the society, how it kind of permeates our perspectives, and it, not necessarily it's right. I think there's a lot more good people out there. It's just you have to wade through all the crap to get to it.
Yes. And this is really a win-win. They don't take any money if you don't make any money. So
see, and I find that interesting.
If you had a loss,
Mm-hmm.
you don't lose any money. You don't owe them any money for the loss, unless somehow your whole business tanked and they lost all of their money too. Then you still owe them their investment. But the only thing that they ever collect on is profits, and they don't take it either. They save it into the business so it can continue to grow. I'm ending up talking way too much about it.
No,
it's
fine.
It for another episode, but
yeah. Actually, this episode has turned into last second subject matter. 1 second, I gotta open up this door because my dog's like scratching it. 1 second, I apologize.
By all means.
Yeah. All right, so for those that are
the
listening,
other dog wants to go.
Yeah, well, no, it's no when yeah, the joys of pet ownership. No, it's just one of those things where, like, if my wife isn't in the house, they like. I mean, obviously, dogs are pack animals, and they like to be in the room wherever someone is, and if someone's not, like when my wife gets back from the store, they're going to be scratching on the door to get out, and it's just. Always an opportune time, like when I'm on the, any other time, they wouldn't be bothering anything. But now that I'm in front of people, it's amazing. It's Murphy's Law at its finest. But yeah, no, we'll have to revisit that, because I think that would be its own show to help explain it. And then also, who knows, it might help other people and whatever. But if anybody has any questions on that, be sure to, pop it in and we'll chat about it. So tonight, we talked about me.
Sorry, my week. Forget about you. No, how was your week? Seriously.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm shaking the magic 8 ball. How was my week? Well, actually, that doesn't really work for. Better not tell you now. How about that?
That does work.
Perfect.
Well, we'll have to tell you next week.
Yeah. I'm actually. I'm working on a project, and I gotta hire some people. So I need to hop on Guru or Freelancer, and I need to hire some people to do some projects for me. And I haven't fully flushed it out yet, but I'm circling the drain on it. And that's something that I will probably talk about at some point in the future. It's not something I really want to get into right now, but I'm making progress on it. And it's something that,
awesome.
well, it's about writing, really. And really what I want to do is eventually I want to open up a Amazon. I talked about it last week too, so I don't know why I'm being secretive, but really, eventually I want to open up a publishing company for authors and writers, and help them. If someone's a avid writer, but they don't want to deal with the marketing, or they don't want to deal with actually the rigmarole of actually the minutia of actually like marketing it and doing all this, well, I want to help them succeed. So, and then also, I like to write too, so I'm writing short stories as well. So that's another thing I've been doing lately is trying to set aside time. But man, it is so hard, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. Because it's really easy to get overwhelmed. And that's another thing we should probably do a show on at some point, is how to deal with being overwhelmed.
It's a great idea.
So we'll write that down.
Use that. Yes.
All right. So moving on. This show is brought to you by so tonight, like I said, we're going to talk about how to become a subject matter expert. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I kind of took some notes, and I really wanted to try to give people the best answer that I could, rather than kind of just off the top of my head. So I do apologize. I'm going to try to read some of my notes and explain what I'm saying. But well, I think there's a lot to it, and I don't want to just like spit out like this is what you do, and then all of a sudden I'm forgetting like a key aspect that you need. But
2 plus equals 4. I don't know what that third one was, or that second one was, but
exactly. So and the first thing that I would say to being successful or an expert at anything is mindset. That's right. To me, that is like bar none one of the most important things that you can ever invest with for yourself is your mindset. It'll totally change the world if you can change how you look at it.
Well, and I have to agree with that. And I apologize, but let me hop in real quick.
No,
it's so true. No matter what you do, whether it be a business or a hobby or whatever, it starts with your thoughts. Because if you and it sounds so cliche because you hear it all the time. Well, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. But it's so true. I mean, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you believe you can do it, well, you're going to put in the effort, and lo and behold, the habit is going to build, and you're going to be able to do whatever it is. But on the other side, if you don't believe it's going to work,
that's a sneaky thing.
Yeah.
If you don't, flex your mindset muscles, before you know it, something else has crept into your brain, and now you're believing something that you know is not necessarily true, but it's
Right.
because you weren't like trying to be aware of it, and so that's why I think mindset is it's just
Oh,
huge.
it's huge.
I'm learning so much about myself going through a business. There's so many things I had to overcome, and
Oh
I
yeah.
still do, you know.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting because once you kind of unlock those things, your life gets easier and you can help people on such a greater scale, and you're more confident in yourself because you've been there, done that, understand how that works, and you have the ability to go into it with a better
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and that's another cool thing is once you develop these skills, or once you develop the mindset, or once you develop, the experiences that you get from growing, you can take those experiences and then put them into something else.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you talk about opening a business. Well, if you want to start learning how to paint or draw or go to the gym, or whatever, it's like you start learning the building blocks of becoming a subject matter expert in whatever it is, and then once you learn the process, man, whatever you want to do in life, you can go do it. And that's the cool thing
Yep,
about it, is like there's really nothing holding you back in this world. There really isn't. The only thing that's holding you back is, and for those that
absolutely.
are listening on the podcast, I'm pointing at my brain, or my, it's like it's really all right here wrapped up in your head.
And I couldn't agree more, and that's one of the things that, like, I love the saying, even though it's cliche, it's like you could do whatever you put your mind to, but it's
Mm-hmm.
so true. And there's so many times that people are like, nope, that's not true. But it really is, if you can take a step back, learn how to do it and stay optimistic.
Right.
Um, there's a rocket scientist, and he has his own. I think it's a course. It's from Mastermind or whatever, where there's a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of people you can learn from. And he says to be a rocket scientist and to go land on the moon, you have to be an optimist. There's no way that you can get to that point without looking at the good in things and being hopeful. And that's so true. I was just like, when he said that, I was like, wow, like that is the absolute truth. If people are sitting at home being negative and all stuff, nobody would believe you could go to outer space. Nobody would believe that you can go to, the moon or
Well,
have a rocket.
and that's also true, because it also changes the whole concept of, like, if you're negative, you already come up with roadblocks, but if you're optimist, you think of how you do things, right? You
Yeah.
have these questions where you're like, you start becoming curious, and then you start asking the kind of questions, because if you're negative, you're going to be like, well, that roadblock, and you're not going to follow through. But if you are optimist, you're going to have these questions like, well, let's see, and then you're going to ask the different kinds of questions that's going to help you, cross those bridges. Let's see.
And
Go ahead.
before we get to that
Yeah.
question, one of the things I'm just totally blanking now.
It happens all the time. It's okay. It's all right. You're okay.
I
The
had it perfectly
scientist,
worded too.
the
Um,
the moon.
no, it's about the negativity. All right, let's answer the question.
Okay. All right. So Jared asks this: Tim, what is one thing you learned about yourself, for example? Just curious.
Well, being kind of an introvert myself, I've tended to stray away from networking and stuff like that, and being a positive person, or at least trying to be a positive person. There's a lot of negative people out there, and I haven't found a lot of positive people who appreciate positivity and are always trying to progress in life rather than put up excuses or roadblocks or drama. And so I've always tried to be more introverted because I found that I got along with myself better than a lot of other people who I just don't want to be exposed to the negativity with. And so when I started my business, I was all like, yes, this is one of those businesses I can do by myself. Nobody else has to tell me what to do. I don't have to, bounce ideas off somebody and go back and forth and all stuff. It could be just me. And I quickly realized that that was one of the biggest mistakes I could have made. Networking was probably the biggest thing, although the investors just as big, and I mean there's networking through that. But networking was probably the biggest thing that I did for my company. I've learned from other people who are experts, who have been in the field, did stuff themselves, and they had knowledge or a perspective that I was not even open to. And then when I heard somebody else say it or put it in that perspective, it just dawned on me and I realized that I was doing things wrong. And once I started to be a lot more open to working with people, to helping other people, connecting with other people, I got a lot further in my business. And it also ended up creating some partnerships and some friends and stuff who are willing to help me out. And with my business of buying products, now that I have like friends, there's certain people I can, buy twice the amount of products with and get a better pricing on it. But I'm really only spending what I would purchase anyways, but I have somebody else buying it with me. And that was a huge thing that I've unlocked for my business as well. So that was one of the biggest things that I learned about myself was that despite the fact that I've found so much more productivity in being alone, it really wasn't there. It was just I was in the wrong environment to, I had to get myself surrounded by good people and people who are in the same kind of path in life as I was.
And honestly, that kind of goes back to the whole subject matter expert. Is getting
all this stuff is touching on this.
Yeah, no, it really does. I mean, so first you need mindset, and then continue on with that.
Oh, well, for mindset, I want to elaborate a little bit more on that, if I may, and I'll make it kind of quick. For mindset, you want a mindset of growth, which means that and understand that abilities can be achieved through skills, work, and dedication. One of the great things about being a human is that we are strong, resilient, and adapt quickly. This is huge because everything is learnable, and through trial and error, we can learn things much faster. Because error, to me, is the most data-rich event you can have. Once you find out what's wrong with it, you can eliminate certain things and keep moving forward.
Right.
And I find that people who have made mistakes in life are now more of an expert on that than just somebody else who has passed over that. And the more that we stick with things and the more that we learn, the further you get. So that makes you even closer to an expert. So, just know that the longer you stick with it and the more optimistic you are, the further you're going to get and the closer you are to being an expert. It's surprising how little people actually push themselves, at least what I've noticed. When I started my business, I was like, oh man, it's going to be totally there's so many people doing it. I see all the advertisements and everything. And when I got in there, sure, there's a lot of people trying it, but a lot of people just, they stopped after one try and that was it. They figured it didn't work. It was a scam or something like that. And so I realized that that there's not a lot of people that push themselves, but that actually makes it easier for you to rise above common knowledge and to become an expert. And for me, that was one of the biggest things that I had learned too, because it made what seemed like such a big task that much easier. Because I had realized that there's just people who aren't willing to push themselves a little bit, and it's not like you have to, break your back with all this stuff. Just push a little bit further, and you'll get farther than most people do. Another thing is to recognize how you learn. And I think that's a huge thing. There's people who are good at, listening. There's people who are good at reading. There's people who are good at hands-on and all that stuff. Figure out which is your best method of learning and go find things that are congruent with that. Consume content, whether it's podcasts, YouTube, courses, whatever it is.
That's true. And honestly, when it comes to, because I'm very eclectic. I'm all over the place with things that I like, right? I like to.
I get it.
I like to do this. I like to do that. I like to do that. And what I like to do is I like to, whenever I find a subject, well, that's number one, to become a subject matter expert. You had to pick one. And then you got to stick with it.
Pick one.
And you got to be consistent. But what I do is kind of like, what you're saying is you start consuming all the information that's available, through reading, through listening, through teaching, right?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest mistakes you could do is to just learn by one source, whether it's a person or whatever. You want to find different perspectives because some won't ring true with you, but you'll find stuff that does. And in the middle is where the truth lies. And that'll make you even a better of an expert because you'll know of these other perspectives that people will come to you and ask about. And you can give your weight on how you feel about that.
Well, that's true. I mean, once you know more about the knowledge and the ins and outs of it, you can actually bring new perspectives to it, which sets you apart, which set, from all that 90% of the people. And that's what's so cool about learning all these different things is then you start, because we all have different experiences that we bring to the table. And sometimes the knowledge that we get from the table combined with the knowledge that we bring to the table comes up with new ideas, which
Absolutely.
furthers the subject. So continue.
And that kind of brings me to the next part. Do your research. I would suggest you look up experts in the field, case studies, techniques, tactics, and internalize what you learn. Don't be afraid to draw your own conclusions, which is what, basically what you're saying. You're gonna figure out something that someone else may not have figured out. And then this could lead you to a discovery or further narrow what you want to become an expert on. I found that with my business, just go. As long as you go forward, you will find things that attract you and push you away, and you'll get closer to what you really want to do or what really excites you. Even though at the beginning it's kind of like, you're like, I don't really know, but the more you find things, there's always like a subject within a subject that you can be drawn to. Whether it's talking to people on the phone talking to suppliers, or maybe it's actually doing the numbers, or maybe it's actually writing up the emails and thanking people for purchasing. Whatever it is, there's something that you will like and you could become an expert on that's even further into the topic that you're learning about. The next thing I would say is know your objective and know your audience. When people want to become an expert, it's usually to solve or provide something of value to someone. So learn about your goals and your target audience to further your strategies and direction, as well as provide clarity. I think that if you know what you're trying to accomplish, you can have a much clear direction of what to go learn and what to go do, rather than having all this noise in your head about oh, what about this? What about that? But if you know what you're doing, you can cut out some of that stuff that you don't need, that other people might suggest.
Right.
And I think that that's pretty helpful. Another thing is don't be afraid to scrutinize and break down concepts and into processes and steps. This will ease the work and help. This will ease the work and difficulties that may arise. For instance, like there's certain parts of a new thing that you'll learn, and it's kind of tough to repeat it. So what you want to do is kind of build a process for yourself and scrutinize, like, where am I getting lost? What's going on? And break it down as much as you can so that when you go through it the second time, the third time, it just gets easier and easier.
And this is also,
and then you're more motivated to do it.
Right. But this is also a good point where, this is where you get around people and conversations too, or hire a good coach to help you raise awareness about whatever it is. Because, because sometimes when we are too close to the tree to see the forest, a good coach or a good conversation with someone else that's open-minded or honest can help you raise your awareness about where you're getting stuck in the process with whatever subject matter it is. It could be shooting, it could be whatever. We all, like I said, we all get kind of in a rut because we only see things from one perspective. But when we engage in conversation and here again, scrutinize each concept, or you break it down, well, you can help break it down by having conversations with others, because with others they can see and help you through that. So that's something else.
Absolutely. And each person's unique, so there's like an aspect to each person that you talk with that brings something new to the table that you may need that will complement what you're doing. So I highly suggest that. And that brings me to the next step, which is basically what you were touching on, networking. Because as I said, that was one of the biggest flaws I had in my business plan. And if you network, you will, it's exactly what we said. You will find other knowledge that you didn't know about. You'll find other techniques, or someone else who's maybe thought of a different way, or they can explain it in a way that you understand it way better than you did. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the same message about how to do something, and then somebody says it just a little bit differently, and it connects, and I can take it much further than I could by just understanding it, how I did before.
That's very interesting. Marcel says this: an objective point of view can help you gain perspective. That's true.
Exactly.
It's true. I mean, and you just said it. You just hit the nail on the head. It's so true, because sometimes we can hear the same message in the same way or many different ways, but it just takes one different one at a certain time or whatever that can totally illuminate you and be a light on the path. So yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And one of the things that like I've heard so many of the guru sayings out there, and even growing up, I was like, oh man, like I don't want to hear any more of this stuff. It's just, fake mumbo jumbo or whatever. But now that I'm like in the thick of things with business and stuff, a lot of these sayings are true. And despite the fact that, sometimes they're like, oh, it just sounds easier said than done, or anyone can dismiss them or whatever. There's
It's
stuff
like
that's
that.
true.
It's like that meme on Facebook you see of Harrison Ford being, the Star Wars. It's true. Is it
Yep.
true? It's true. All of it. I mean, it is.
Absolutely.
Because it is true. I mean, some of these cliches that you hear from time to time, they're grounded in truth.
Yep. Absolutely. Like, you are what you eat. Like, whatever you're going to consume, you're going to become. If you're consuming a lot of scary media articles, you're going to be afraid of the world.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. I've gone through times where I've got like a news article app, and I just sucked into it. Then I was like, "What am I doing? This world seems too scary to do anything." And then you don't go after your goals and stuff, and you lose all motivation. And
Mm-hmm.
you can still accomplish what you want to if you just put yourself in the right position to listen to the right kind of content.
Right.
And that's another one of those things, is that you are the sum of your 5 closest friends. And that includes,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you don't have a lot of friends and your friends are news apps, articles, and stuff like that, like, that's what's going to happen is you're going to become probably a, pessimistic person, because negative news articles relate better than positive,
Right.
unfortunately. Another thing that I would say to become an expert is stay in touch, like constantly update or stay up to date, which is like reading articles, follow social media, experts and other kind of uh, you know content that is
Mm-hmm.
related to your subject. One of the great things you could use is BuzzSumo, which will notify you when a new article or topic is related to what you want to find out about. It'll notify you, so you can go read that article and stay up to date. Another thing is to build a platform around your knowledge. Now, this is, I feel like, when you start to become the expert. Although if you stay in touch and you start commenting on people's posts and stuff like that, you'll look like an expert to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you build your own platform around your knowledge, which could be anything from a podcast, a YouTube thing, a Facebook, a blog, a Facebook group. I know, right?
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking.
Like just look at what we're doing
YouTube,
here. Yeah.
exactly. And once you do that, people start consuming it and they look up to you because you're giving them something of value. And now you've positioned yourself as an expert to them, even if you don't consider it yourself.
And
Um,
that's really weird too, because like I've had
it is weird. It's
yeah.
such a weird flip.
Hold on. Justin says this. I have unfollowed all pages that show negative fake news over and
Yeah,
over again. There's a lot of that out there. And then
so
Marcel
much.
says constant continuing education, and that's true.
Yep.
Once you become a subject matter expert, even when you, and this is another thing we need to talk about too, is the imposter syndrome, because at some point in the process, there's that thing you got to get over. And the best thing that I ever heard when it comes to, because okay, first off, when you're starting off, you don't know anything. You're learning. And then at some point, you're going to start teaching it to others, or you're going to start talking about your ideas. And it's okay to have your ideas, and it's okay to talk about your subject matter. But in the back of your mind, you're going to be like, well, why would they ever want to listen to me, or whatever. But the thing is, the best thing I ever heard, and it came from a guy named Dave Gambrell, who I follow. And he told me he was saying that just be a 5th grader to a 3rd grader on the subject, and that's huge, because
Huge.
if every 3rd grade, I mean, I remember when I was in 3rd grade, I looked up at that 5th grader like, oh my gosh, they know everything, but they didn't. And then once I was a 5th grader, I'm like, oh wow, they really didn't know anything. But I thought they did.
Right.
But at the same time is sometimes when you're 2 steps or 3 steps ahead, you're in a better position to answer questions because it's so fresh in your experience. Whereas if someone was a senior or a college grad coming back to a 3rd grader and trying to explain things, the concepts that you have would be so beyond that 3rd grader is going to be like, wow, I don't even, over my head.
Yep.
And so And the thing is everybody's story matters too. So, you combine that with your knowledge and the story and your knowledge, and then, you bring that to your subject matter expert too. So no, it's a really interesting concept, the whole thing.
It really is, and I've experienced it too. I mean, sometimes like you look up to somebody who's taught you some stuff, and then you go meet them in person, and like finally it'll kind of all like fades away. You're like, they're just a normal person, like I am. Like you realize that they're just a normal person who had to do everything from the bottom and work their way up, and that kind of like as much as it's kind of sad to like have them go on this high pedestal a little bit down to more normal.
Oh, he's a mere
it's
mortal.
yeah, exactly. But it's actually kind of motivating too, because then you can kind of look at like what's the other perspective on this, and it's that they were just a normal person who had nothing, had to keep working and building their knowledge, and then eventually they shared it to other people, and that's how they got there. And it makes you realize that you could do that too.
Right.
And it's not a path for immortals, and but that brings me to the next thing, which I kind of touched on a little bit, was engage in conversation, comments on posts, articles, blogs. By educating others, you educate yourself, and that was a huge thing too.
That's true. Hold on one second. Chris Rez says the best advice I ever received is to learn something new every day, every single day. That's
every single day.
I think that's the problem with society. Well, we won't go down that path, but I think that's the problem that we see a lot. People aren't curious. People aren't open to learning new things anymore. And Marcel says this, and sometimes it's just a matter of trying it and winging it. You're right.
Yeah,
absolutely. You just try, you wing it, and then you learn from it. I remember when I first fired a pistol. It was scary. It was like, going back to skill sets, right?
Sure.
Let's talk about subject matter experts. And so, my experience from going from day one, picking up a pistol, looking at it, it's like, oh, this is kind of weird. And it's kind of, strange and it's loud and it's scary. But then, you shoot it, you adjust, you get better at it, and then it becomes familiar, and then you get better at it. And then, your grouping or your shot placement on the target down range gets better and better and better. And then finally, you get really good at it, because the skills that you hone, the knowledge that you hone through use, right? So the knowledge that we have, and what I mean by using it is by practice. I can't even say it. Practicing it in conversation, right? Talking about our knowledge, our concepts, or skill-based shooting, painting, taking photography, whatever. And then, the more you do it, the better you get, because the more experience you have in that subject matter, the more profound it gets, right? Yeah. And then eventually you get to the point where it just becomes second nature, Let's see. Rebecca says this. That's a great photo, Rebecca. Lots of school. So I've noticed that it's hard for my friends and family to recognize my area of specialty. Strangers believe in my credentials, but friends and families don't. Random
Oh
side
my
note.
gosh. So true. Oh my gosh. That strikes a chord with me right there.
Right.
Like me being the youngest in my family, nobody wants to trust that I've done anything. You know what I mean? But it's so true.
It is interesting that whole concept. It's like, I that's an interesting concept. I mean,
here I am, on this journey of trying to better my life, better myself, and be the most that I could be, which I would think most people would want to do for themselves anyways. But, friends and family who know me, they don't really, care as much as I would have thought, but it's just how it is. But if I talk to strangers and stuff like that, they're blown away and they respect it, they understand it, and they appreciate it.
Well, it reminds me of the whole, there's a quote in the Bible. I had to look it up just to make sure, but in John 4:44, when here again, I'm not trying to get religious on anybody, but it says this. Now, Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own country. And, and that's pretty profound, because it goes back to the whole, like, well, I know that person. It's kind of hard when
that person.
Yeah, that person. Like in the case of like, they've known you since you were in diapers. So what would you know? Like, I mean, it's just funny, that whole familiarity concept. Like I can
Yep.
have more people that don't know me, or you know, like I said, you know, or even Facebook. Let's look at Facebook for instance, right? I mean, you know, you look at Facebook and you have all these different profiles, and at face value, you think that they, you know, these people are like amazing, and then you know, Tim, you and I have been a part of different groups that are private, and we see them, you know, have the most basic questions, and we're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yep.
So, so yeah, so yeah, no, that's true. Let's see. Patrick says it's very true. Yet another reason not to do business with family and friends.
Yeah. It's a very good rule of
Justin says haters gonna hate. It's not even just hate. It's more of a familiarity.
like
you know,
disbelief almost. It's
well, I
like they
mean,
can't believe that you're that guy who was in diapers, you know, years back, and now all of a sudden you can do something that other people aren't trying to accomplish, or you know, I don't know. I just how I look at it. What were you gonna say?
yeah. Rebecca says this familiarity bias. It's like, you know, they've seen you at your best, they've seen you at your worst, you know, so it's kind of, you know, yeah, they have these sunglasses of prisms that they see things through. And
See, I wish people wouldn't look that way. I wish they could be like, wow, you did some really crazy stuff at your worst, and now it's unbelievable that you're doing something even better. Like, that should be how it is. It's not like, dude, you can't be doing that. You look at how you were at your worst. Like, there's no way you've evolved into this person.
that's true. I knew her as a police cadet, totally different from what she does now. And but that's true. You know, we develop these relationships with people over time, and thankfully, I'm open-minded, and I knew Rebecca could do anything that she put her mind to. Actually, no, I really did. I mean, you know,
I believe that.
I've always been a big believer in people's potential, because I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it, you know, 10 years ago when I wasn't such a subject matter expert on a whole lot of things. I was on some things. I was on, like, you know, military. You know, I was a contractor. I knew how to shoot a gun, and I knew how to do things pretty well in that realm. But when it comes to like mindset, even though I was positive, I wouldn't call myself a subject matter expert. But now I would say that I am. And I saw in my own life how I have evolved. And so going through that experience myself, and I guess that's just it, you know, with the experiences that you go through, expand who you are to be able to see it in others. So for those that haven't done that, they can't see it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know, you almost have to have that experience yourself of expansion in order to see it in others. Let's see. Well, friends and family always argue with you, counter your points so they can accept that you're so they can't accept. It's okay.
See, I like to think of people as like an iceberg. You know, what
Right.
you see and what you observe is only like 10% of who they are. So they might have other things that they're really good at, maybe even stuff that they haven't discovered themselves. And so for you to kind of like assume based on their past that that's how, you know, they can't, there's no way they could accomplish something in an opposite field or whatever. It's just, I don't know.
You know, and I think there's a couple things going on here, right? Like you have two things. You have a group of people that may not believe what you're doing is good because, or they may not have faith in what you're doing because, you know, they've known you all their life. But then you also have the other side that they don't want to see you get hurt, right? So
Yeah.
so they don't, you know, they don't necessarily have a negative or a hateful thing. I'm trying to think of how to explain it. It's like
They're cautious.
they don't want to see you get hurt, so they're very cautious, and they're almost cautious for you.
Yeah.
You know, so but it comes across as being non-supportive, and it's like,
absolutely.
listen, you know, I really need support here. Yeah, but did you think about this, or did you? Well, you know that, you know, and it's just like, yeah, no, I've dealt with that. But so there's two things going on, and I think that sometimes, you know, whenever we do expand ourselves, you know, you're going to have haters that are going to hate, like Justin just,
Yep.
eloquently put. But then also you're going to have the other side that people do care, but you know, it just comes off as wrong. But
And I can see that, especially because I've had false beliefs about running a business. So to see somebody who had, you know, just a regular 9-to-5 job take that leap, I'd be a little worried about, the outcome. Are they going to be able to provide for
Right.
themselves? And so I guess I could understand some of that too. But now that I understand that it's not as crazy of a leap as I thought it was, there's just a lot of negative association put around it with all the work and I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you still put in 40 hours, so it's like, it's really no different
Hmm.
than a job. I mean, you could choose not to put in 40 hours too. That's the difference. But I don't know. It
Solid
just,
choice.
yep. um, and then the last thing I have on for being an expert is to write a book, write about what you know and bring value to others. A lot of times authors are considered experts. By
Hmm.
writing one thing that provides value, you'll be seen as one too.
Well, see, and then not just writing a book, creating a podcast or creating
Yep.
a blog or creating, value, right? And it kind of goes back to that putting it into action, right? The stuff I learned in the military, how to shoot. Well, yeah, I could go create a training course tomorrow, and that would even bump up my subject matter expert on that even more.
Mhm.
Or you know, in the case in point, create a podcast to talk about different things, which elevates the perceived perspective that I'm a subject matter expert or whatever. I mean, because I've had people now reach out to me, hey, what do you think about doing a podcast? I don't know. I just started. But you learn as you go, and be a fifth grader to a third grader, right? But
Yep.
but it's so interesting the whole concept. So to basically to take all that and condense it, um, obviously find a subject you like, learn
Yep.
as much as you can, and get around the same community, and then just do it, right? And then as you
Yeah.
do
Just
it,
do it.
engage in conversation and engage in the skill set, engage in the thing. There's a story. So my brother, just like line
Oh
dancing,
boy.
yeah, you just did it. Well, it's story time. It's all.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, if anybody has any questions or anything else, please. So my brother and I, we, in the Marine Corps, we were in South Carolina together. And after boot camp, I ended up in pretty much the same location. And every weekend we would go to Charleston, which was about an hour away from where we were stationed in Beaufort. And it was really cool because, being in the military and being so close to my brother, it was really neat. And so I went with him and his friends because, I was new and I didn't really know anything. And you got to understand, my brother and I, yes, we do, Patrick. Patrick says men don't line dance. Well, I consider myself a man, and I did at the time. So, but no, so anyway, we go to this country bar, this country club, and you got to understand because my brother and I, we were raised in almost a fundamentalist Christian home, where it wasn't quite footloose, but it wasn't where where we saw dancing as sin, but we were very strict on the way we thought. And so even going to a club was kind of like, okay. But anyway, so we get there and we're sitting there on the side looking at the people dancing, and they were doing Cotton Eye Joe, and they're going around this big circle,
Yes.
and they're doing the da da, and they're kicking back and forth, and and my like I said, my brother and I, we were right there at the precipice looking at this thing, and I'm like, screw it. I just jumped right on in. And my brother, he like looked over there, and he told me this later because we've talked about it, and he just looked back. He's like, "Well, what do you think?" And then I was gone, and he looked up, and I was like halfway around the circle, already doing it, and then he's like, "Oh, okay," and then he did too. And but that's just it. Sometimes in life, you just gotta dance. You gotta roll the dice. You gotta just
Gotta.
do it. And yeah, no,
There's so much more in your head about like why you can't or shouldn't do it than there is with like actually pushing yourself through it. It's amazing how much more agony you'll put yourself through mentally than actually physically going and doing it.
No, it's true.
That's what I found out.
The thing is like, here again, you're so close to the tree, you're worried about what people are thinking about you with whatever it is. That's another thing. Not only is imposter syndrome, but then you're worried about what people think. No one cares about you.
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean that in the nicest way possible. And the reason why they don't care is because they're concerned about what people think of them.
Yep.
And I kind of learned that a long time ago, and then that's why when I was sitting there on the side of the dance floor, I'm like, well, screw it, I'm gonna just get out there and do it. And if anybody has a problem, well, that's their problem. And so yeah, that's funny. Okay, Marcel says, I just wish there were photos of you in poop kickers, big old cowboy hat. There might be somewhere, I don't know, but those were, that was a fun time. But I'm glad those times are over because I can't hang like that anymore, and I don't line dance anymore because I guess I'm a man now since I don't line dance anymore. But that was a good memory. Oh man, but we got really good too. I mean, we started off, we sucked at it. I mean, but going back to the dancing, and then we learned how to swing dance, and then we learned how to do the two-step, and we learned how to do the waltz and the trot and all these different things. And it all started with line dancing of all things. And that was a cool thing about that nightclub called Desperados, Charleston, South Carolina. I don't think it's there anymore, but they played country music. They played all sorts of different kinds of music, but that's where we started. We started off doing that. And then, it led to, there's a joke out there. You know why Baptists don't believe in premarital sex?
Why's that?
It might lead to dancing. I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding. No, but yeah, no, it's just that was a little side jaunt there, but we started off dancing. We got we got pretty good at it, and at least people thought we were good at it, and we didn't know what we were doing, but we did well enough to get by. That's funny. Well, little sidetrack there, but no, but that's the thing. But that's the thing. It's like, we all have these stories of things that we've learned in life, and we can either stop there, or we can continue on and create new memories of new things that we want to learn. So that is I guess that's my biggest takeaway from why we're doing this question. How can I become a subject matter expert? Because you can become a subject matter expert with whatever it is, whether it be line dancing or painting or Amazon or shooting or whatever. You can do it. And
do it.
Okay.
I was gonna say, just get started, because it leads to other things, as you said too, and that will lead to opportunities that you want to do, and you'll never realize like where you're going to end up until you do it. And same thing with my business. I've had so many other opportunities come my way. I mean, even different styles of Amazon, like managing companies, their Amazon account. I've gotten affiliate marketing type of offers and stuff like that, and I never was expecting that. That wasn't my goal at all. But now that it's out there and it's an option that was only there because I took the chance, it's something that I'm gonna look into and probably pursue. So it's just, I can't emphasize enough, just do it. There's a quote that's ready, fire, aim, and it's supposed to be, instead of getting ready to aim and figure out what you're doing, just do it. And then once you do it, figure out where you are and adjust from there, and just keep going forward. So
my wife, Marcel, she says this, and people actually thought we were professional dancers at my last class reunion. It's because they weren't dancers. That's
yeah, exactly, right?
Well, but and it kind of goes back to that the reason why you should do these things. Like, if you have a desire to do something, it's better to live and learn, whether it be a good experience or a bad experience, within reason. I'm not saying go out and just do something totally outrageous, but it's better than living with regret of never doing it.
Absolutely.
Because if you go through it and you give it your all, and for whatever reason it doesn't pan out, or you lose interest in it, well, hey, now you know. I mean, heck, there's been a lot of things that I've given up on because I was just like, okay, I just lost my interest. Oh, and that's another thing. In order to be continued and to be successful in your subject matter expert, consistency is key. right? It's not an overnight thing. It's not something that you're going to pick up and tomorrow, this whole process is years in the making. It's not like, you're not going to get become a subject matter expert in a month.
No. Yeah.
And kind of going back to that whole, subject matter expert of, just using my own experiences. And this is what I was trying to get at earlier, but I got sidetracked by dancing stories. but 10 years ago, I might've been a little bit optimistic and I might've been a little humorous or whatever, but I wouldn't consider myself a subject matter expert when it came to mindset or how to build things or how to, move forward. But once I started getting around A, education, B, people, networking and conversation, and then actually presenting these ideas and then coming up with my own ideas based off of what I'm learning in my own experiences, now I would consider, I am a subject matter expert when it comes to mindset issues or coaching or different things. Marcel says this: years of practice and application. It's true. Adjust, learn, adjust, learn. Kind of going back to the whole tactical shooting stuff. That didn't come overnight. That came over years of doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. Just like painting, it comes from doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. Just like your Amazon business, it comes from doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. So, that's pretty much that's it.
And if you love the subject, you're gonna want to keep pushing forward and learning more about it. Just don't let any of the failures or mistakes stop you, because there's so much more opportunity if you just keep going. And I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but it's amazing to hear. And I know this is, we're talking about experts of anything, but when it comes to business, how small a percentage of people actually make it to successful businesses. I think only 24% of businesses hit $100,000 in a year. I think it's like 4% hit $1 million, and then 0.5% hit 10 million. And it drops off dramatically. But to get there, the hardest part is only in the beginning. It really is getting yourself going and doing it. And once you get there, it's a lot easier to get to those bigger businesses, but you just have to keep going. And
and it's funny because there's a law of I can see where this kind of fits in, law of lid. And what that means, John Maxwell wrote a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and one of them is called the law of lid, meaning your organization is never going to outdo. If you're the leader, your organization is never going to outdo you. So if you're the leader of your organization or your business or whatever, and you're not open-minded and you're not open to growing, well, guess what? Your business is going to hit you, the lid, and you're not going to go any farther than that. And I think a lot of that concept,
so true.
I think a lot of that concept, if you learn that, that will be the difference between the 25%, the 4%, and the 1%. If you're constantly learning and trying to adjust and get better, you exponentially increase your chances of getting those percentages. So,
and I went through that with my business. I thought that I wanted to only sell things I knew about, and I was kind of being specific with who I wanted to work with instead of getting over myself and pushing myself further. And now I sell whatever I can that is a good product to sell. I am a lot more willing to call any kind of supplier up and try to work with them, whereas before I was being selective and thinking like I got this, and I was my own ceiling on my business. And then I realized that like I was not doing myself any justice, especially if I want to get my end goal of being able to get some of my time back. And I wasn't getting there quickly at all by limiting myself with these thoughts of this is how I'm going to do it and not a different way. But then when I realized,
that's something we didn't even touch on, and this is huge: confidence. The more you do it, the more confident you get in it, until eventually it becomes second nature. Like you start playing mind games with yourself because you're worried about what could or could not happen. Now that you've done it a few times and you know what you bring to the table, now you're like, yeah, this is what I do. Oh, okay. Well, tell us what you do, Tim. No, this is what I do. Okay. Whereas before it's like, well, so it's interesting, the whole concept of like as you learn the subject even better and become more sharper in that endeavor or whatever. Yeah, no, it's really, the whole concept is really neat. And then the cool thing is, like we were talking about earlier, is once you learn this concept in one aspect of your life, then you can take it and put it into other aspects of your life.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
And it's just so neat. So, well, I think we've had a pretty good conversation. Is there anything? First off, you, the viewer, do you have any other questions that you would like to throw out there? Because we are winding it down. We are about an hour in, and I just want to give you the chance to either hop in on the comments or whatever. For those that are watching this now or in the future or listening to this on podcast, if you'd like to reach out to us and either have us go over a topic that didn't make sense, or you have a question that you would like answered, be sure to reach out at goodquestionsbadanswers@gmail.com. Yeah, Tin Hat. Yeah, I need to figure out how to bring that back. For those that are new to the show, we did have an aspect of tinfoil hat where we talked about conspiracy theories, and that's something I do want to get back to. But at the same time, I do want to move forward in this format of answering questions, because that was the whole point of the start of the show. Was we can talk about whatever it is, but it has to be question format. What, how, when, whatever, because because that's the brand. If we have a show about all these other different ideas and we don't, then it kind of gets discombobulated and it doesn't really create a brand. Justin asks, how much longer do you think Chop will last? I don't know. And what he's referring to is the whole situation in Seattle about them cordoning off an area and becoming an autonomous zone. I don't think it's going to last very much longer. I could be wrong, but I think people are getting fed up. I think people are getting fed up with this is just me personally, my humble opinion. This isn't anybody else's opinion. This is just me. I think people are getting fed up in the country when it comes to hypocrisy, and we're seeing it all the time now in a lot of our responses, whether it be crime related, whether it be disease or COVID response related. I think people are getting kind of fed up, and that's concerning to me, because for societies to work, there has to be a common goal and a common the fabric is there because it meshes well together. But when you have all these different things vying for different things, vying for different ideals or wants or desires, well, it's going to rip the fabric apart, and heaven help, God help us all if that happens, because then we're in for some bad times. And I hope it, yeah. Marcel says this, it reminds me of The Neutral Zone and The Man in the High Castle, which actually, that was a great show. If you haven't watched that, it was on Amazon Prime. No, it's a really good show. If you like history, well, it's not really history related. It's alternate history, but it's really kind of a neat show.
I think that it won't last very long either, just because I think, as you stated in previous episodes, we have such a short attention span. Something else dramatic will happen, and things will kind of shift, and I think things will peter out. And I don't know how they're going to resolve it, but I don't think it's going to last long. I just hope that the message of trying to restructure what we need to clearly restructure continues on in a peaceful way that will be able to influence the changes that need to happen.
Well, we also got to remember that any movement, any party, anything, in order for people to continually get elected, they have to make an enemy out of somebody. Because if everybody was hunky-dory, if everybody got along fine, then they would realize that they don't need these people to make decisions for them. And then that kind of cuts them out of business. Then they're not making money. They're not making, they're not the leader anymore. And I think that's the problem with left, right, different kind of movements that we see in society, is they instigate it and they prolong it because they know that if they can do that, well, it keeps them in power. So it's really an interesting concept. And then you got the whole another thing you got to worry about is, while we're all concerned about what's going on inside the country, well, we really need to be worried about what's going on outside the country, because just because we aren't on the same page right now in our country doesn't mean other people or other countries, they're pretty focused on what they want to get out of this. So
I actually saw something interesting. I'm so glad I thought of this. I saw that there's a huge following for Korean pop music called K-pop, and apparently, due to this whole hashtag Black Lives Matter, a lot of the musicians have started this whole movement with all their following of blowing up social media on hashtag White Lives Matter, so that all the white supremacy stuff won't show up anymore. If you Google the hashtags, they don't show up as white supremacy posts; they're K-pop posts. Because of all these people, they told them to go infiltrate social media and make it so that all this white supremacy stuff does not show up as like relevant. Instead, all these other things are showing up and drowning out the white supremacy movement.
See, that's interesting. But see, then it kind of,
why K-pop? That's crazy.
Yeah, well,
interesting.
But here again, this kind of goes to show the power of social media and the power of misconception or misdirection, right? I saw, and here again, I don't know if this is and I really don't want to get political on this show, but we are. But we're talking about, and here again, I don't know if it's true or not, but I did see, Trump had his rally this past weekend in Oklahoma, and the news media is all about, they're not showing it wasn't as big as of a crowd that it could have been. There were some empty seats. But then, and here again, I don't know if this is true or not, but I can see it. You had certain people that were proud because they got a whole movement to reserve seats that they never followed through on. So, and then you got to worry about, and that's the thing. It's like, when the ends justify the means, that's when we need to be worried. No matter what party does it or what movement does it, when the ends justify the means of deception or misdirection and all these other things that are going on, that's concerning, and that's something that we really need to kind of pay attention to, because there's some people that would rather watch the world or the United States burn than to actually come together and get it fixed, because they think that the longer they, kind of goes back to that whole thing I was talking about earlier, is the more they can cause hate and discontent, the more they can stay in power, because they can help fix the boogeyman. But the boogeyman wouldn't be there if they actually worked on, kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy. If you actually work on unity and that's what you believe in and had optimistic views on it, well, then you can come together and actually try to fix it. But the more people get into their bottleneck views and closed-minded, and then they don't even research, they don't even learn, they don't even listen, and they, it's interesting. Anyway, well, we kind of belabored that question, Justin. I hope you got something out of that. If you like the show, be sure to give it a like. If you think someone else would get something out of this, be sure to invite them to the page. If you're listening to this on podcast, give us a review. We would appreciate that. And if you're watching this on YouTube in the future, go ahead and subscribe and let us know what you think. For all of you that are watching tonight, thank you so much for spending your time with us this evening. I hope you got something out of this show. As always, we are learning as we go too. So if you have some suggestions, go ahead and pop them in the goodquestionsbadanswers@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing. And if you have any topics or any other questions that you'd like covered, that's the same thing. Email us. All right. Take care. God bless. Tim, you got anything?
No, thank you guys. I appreciate all the engagement.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, the show would be nothing without you guys actually chatting with us. So we're here for you. So take care. And if you have any questions or if you need any help or you want something that you need help with, we'll help you with anything. So that's the kind of people we are. God bless. We'll see y'all next time.